everybody. Welcome to this week's Monday Minute. I'm here with Trevor, and today we're going to be talking about mindfulness in social media.
It's time for your Monday Minute.
All right, so mindfulness in social media, that's an interesting topic.
Yeah.
Can you tell us why you were so passionate about this?
Yeah. So I think that we've talked a lot about mindfulness as like a field of counseling for a lot of years. And even on Monday Minute, and we have videos on Mayfield Collective about mindfulness. And what it really is it's the practice of presence and intentionality. And there's a lot of different ways to view that. That's how I view it and how I kind of focus in on it. And I think that can be applied to the way that we engage with social media, especially because a lot of the time social media is mindless scrolling or disconnecting, or maybe even at its worst, disassociating or over associating too. And so by adding a level of intentionality and presence to that, I think there's a lot of value that we're able to find in something that really depends on how you're approaching it, on whether it's beneficial or not.
Oh man, I'm feeling a little called out a little bit because I definitely use social media sometimes as my disconnect.
Yeah.
You know, you've had a long day at work, or you're maybe struggling with something emotionally, and it's so easy to just pull up your phone, get on any of the various platforms, and like you said, just kind of scroll endlessly or end up watching like someone you follow watching video after video and not really being aware
Yeah.
of what you're doing.
Totally. And I think we do the same thing with like going home and watching Netflix or Hulu or Amazon or HBO Max, like all of the platforms. Like it's the same kind of idea. And I'm not advocating that we don't do that ever. Like I think that there's a role that can play where it still remains very healthy and meaningful. But I also think that if we just start even with an intentionality around what we're posting and who we're following, we're going to set ourselves up for a lot of success, because a lot of some of the deficits that can come from social media, at least in my opinion, is it feeds our tendency as human beings to compare. And so we know, because we've had these conversations for years and years and years, what we see on social media is not always the true reality of what's going on. Like we have a social media self, this idea of duality, two parts of us. And so with that recognition in mind, it only helps so much, because I might be following somebody that I really admire and wish I could be more like them. And on most days, maybe it's encouraging to see what they're doing, and maybe it's inspiring. But then on the days when I'm trying to disconnect and maybe disassociate or all of those things because I'm feeling insecure or I'm feeling really low, I'm going to see those posts in a different way, where it's like, I'm never going to add up. I'm never going to get there. Or I might even post things and compare the amount of engagement that I got from that post that was similar to this person who got this many. Or I might look at things and say like, well, nobody cares about this post, and so they don't care about me. Or maybe I am following a lot of people who just speak negatively about others. And I'm going to start seeing that come out because I'm just exposed to it. I'm there. And so I like to picture this as a museum curator. So every museum has an individual, and there might be some curators watching this who are like rolling their eyes because I'm getting it so wrong. But my understanding is that a museum curator is the one pursuing different artifacts to put into a museum and making sure that everything in the museum seems cohesive. That, we're not putting a mummy in the Roman area of our museum, or even in the classic rock section, because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit. And so there has to be some real intentionality of like, okay, what sections am I going to engage in? But also, is this something that I want into my museum? Is this something that I want to spend time admiring and being inspired by and being encouraged by, and maybe even looking at and saying like, oh, you know what? I'm not really doing what I want to be doing the same way that maybe this person did, or things like, there's things that we can learn in a museum. And so I think being able to look at who you're following on social media and decide, is this something that fits in the museum that I need in this season of life? Do I need more art? Do I need
Mm,
more cartoonists? Do I need more memes, maybe? Do I need more influencers who are just being authentic and real and trying to break that barrier
mm.
of the duality? What do I need right now? And how do I pursue that and follow that? And how do I maybe balance out some of the things that are really enjoyable for me to watch
Yeah.
with the things that I need to break that pattern just enough for me to stay mindful and present?
I think this is such an important conversation to have. Because, like I said, most of the time, social media for me is a disconnect,
Mm-hmm.
something to just do for fun, take my mind off of current things. But especially over the year of 2020, I
Mm-hmm.
think with all of us being confined to our homes,
Yeah.
a lot of us are spending a lot more time on any kind of online platform and especially social media. And for the first time in my life, I can honestly say I felt my mood shift
Mm-hmm.
based off of what content I was consuming.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily, influencers or certain pages as much as it was just the people I was friends with.
Yeah.
And we were all kind of going through up and down with 2020.
Totally.
So there would be a lot of negativity that really broke my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized the more I read through comments and the more I was paying attention to different arguments on social media platforms, the more cynical and the
Mm-hmm.
more angry I felt myself becoming.
Yeah.
And, thankfully with our training, I was able to be aware of that
Yeah.
enough to go, you need to maybe take a step back a little bit. But even that can be really hard
Yeah.
because we can sometimes be really drawn into drama and we can
Mm-hmm.
get really caught up in it. But in order to protect our own mental health,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, we got to be like the museum curator and decide what pieces we're going to let in, knowing how it affects
Yeah.
us. And choosing things that are going to be uplifting, choosing things that are going to not have a negative effect
Mm-hmm.
on us is so important
Yeah.
if we want to remain, healthy and continue an upward growth instead of falling back into bad patterns of
Yeah.
thinking and behavior. So I think some really important takeaways from this conversation is maybe you need to go home and examine your social media accounts. Who are you following? What kind of content are you allowing into your museum of social media? Are you finding that your mood and emotions are negatively being affected by what you allow in, what content you view? And what kind of content are you putting out there for the world to see? Does it align with the theme that you want for your social media accounts? Go ahead and take a look at what you're putting out there and what you are allowing in. So instead of just mindlessly using social media to disassociate from the day, look at your follows and be intentional. Be mindful of how you choose to use social media. Well, thank you, Trevor, so much for having this
Yeah.
conversation with all of us this week. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I look forward to seeing you next week on Monday for our next Monday Minute.